Good morning guys from Amsterdam. I'm here doing the Euro Pro Show. My name is Kelvin Hind, IFBB Pro Classic Physique. I've done 18 pro shows, 9 top threes, and I'm here in Amsterdam this weekend as a prep towards Tokyo Masters Olympia in 2025. We're going to talk about training splits today. What is the best training split? Now, for beginners, I've always generally started them on a full body, 3 times a week or every other day, full body training split. Whether you do 1 exercise per muscle group, there's absolutely no point doing 4 or 5 exercises for chest if you're not used to that amount of volume. 1 exercise for chest with a couple of sets taken to failure or close to failure will elicit enough response and enough stimulus to the muscle to help you grow. Once people have finished a full body training split, which can go from anything from 3 months to even a year, I'll generally then split their routine up into 2 separate parts. Now, this has quite often been an upper lower body split. I especially do this for the ladies who need to focus more on the lower body. But I do find guys do not like training legs, especially when it's every other workout. So what I've decided to do is create a new split. It's still a 2-day split, but this is a posterior anterior split. So basically the front of the body and the back of the body. So the posterior is the calves, the hamstrings, the lower back, the rhomboids, the traps, the rear delts, the lats, and the biceps. Everything that runs along that back. Obviously the biceps are kind of on the front, but they are obviously used in all the pulling exercises. Now, the anterior workout would be quads, abdominals. Your glutes would go in with that because they're going to be worked during most of your quad exercises. You then do your chest, your shoulders, and your triceps. So, what makes an anterior posterior split so effective? Firstly, it's completely adaptable. So if you're a full-time professional bodybuilder, you could train 6 days a week, posterior, anterior, posterior, anterior, posterior, anterior, and maybe Sunday off. So you could literally train 6 days per week. Obviously, you'd have to manage your volume and how many sets you're actually taking to failure over that whole week. But you could train 6 days a week. It could fit in if you're a full-time mum, if you've got kids, if you've got family, if you've got other work commitments, and you can maybe only train 3 times a week because you do posterior, anterior, posterior, and the next week you go anterior, posterior, anterior. So you never miss a workout. You go from an anterior workout, there's no overlap, into a posterior workout. So it could be 3 days on the trot, even 4 days on the trot. So if you're doing shift work, you can train 4 days, have 4 days off. Train 4 days, have 4 days off. It can be 3 on the trot, then you miss 3, then you go 1, then you're off, then you go 1. So it's completely adaptable to anyone's routine. The beginners would roughly look at setting a workout with even volume because we wouldn't know if we've got a strength or a weakness because we're not at that advanced yet. So you'd probably be doing 1 exercise for chest on the anterior day, 1 for shoulders, 1 for triceps, 1 for quads, 1 for abdominals. Now you might do 2, depends how many working sets you're going to do. So you can maybe do 2 exercises on chest and you'd only do 2 working sets on one's working set on the other. If you were doing shoulders, you might do 3 working sets on shoulder press one day. On the next day, you might do 1 shoulder press and maybe 2 sets of lateral raises. So we're looking to get a roughly even volume through the 5 muscles that are involved in that anterior chain. Okay? Same with the posterior chain. So we'll do 1 exercise for calves, 1 for hamstrings, maybe 1 for the lats, 1 for the rhomboids, 1 for the lower back, 1 for the biceps. Maybe something that includes multiple exercises, like a deadlift would include your hamstrings, your lower back, your rhomboids, and your traps. So the sort of bigger compound movements do cover a lot more than just 1 muscle group within that posterior or anterior chain. Like the bench press would obviously work your chest primarily. It's also going to work the front delts. We'd class that as half a set. So every set we did on bench press, where it would be 3 sets, would count as 1.5 sets for the shoulders, front delts, and 1.5 sets for the triceps. Depending on your ability to recover and how many days a week you're going to commit to, would therefore depend on the volume of exercise and number of sets you're doing per workout. If you were advanced, for example, and you're doing 6 days a week, you wouldn't want to be doing 6 to 8 chest sets to failure per workout. because that would be anything from 18 to 24 sets for chest, which would be a lot to recover from. Now, although you can do this amount of volume, you would then have to lose volume somewhere else. Initially though, we're going to look at doing a roughly even amount of sets for the chest. So you might do 2 direct exercises for the chest. If you're training 4 days a week, that's 6 sets on a Monday, maybe 6 sets on a Thursday. Shoulders, like we said before, some of the sets for bench press or incline press are going to involve the shoulders. So you probably get at least 1.5 sets of shoulders out of one of the pressing movements you're going to do on chest, and 1.5 sets for triceps. So you top that up by doing an isolation for the delts and isolation for the triceps. What's the advantages of doing this type of workout over a bro split? So where we train chest on a Monday, we train shoulders on a Thursday, we train back on a Wednesday. Okay, so the advantages are we can still create the same amount of weekly volume, but the volume that we're going to utilize is going to be more effective and more productive. So for example, if we were doing chest on a Monday and we did 12 sets, so that would be 4 exercises, 3 working sets on each. Now a working set isn't a working set unless you're 1 to 3 reps short of failure, or you go to failure. So if you're not at least 3 reps short of failure, it's not a working set, it's just a warm-up set. So if we were doing 12 working sets, by the time we get through the first 6 sets, 7, 8, 9, the performance level is just going to dip right down. Now, if we took those 12 sets and split them over Monday and Thursday and did 6 on a Monday and 6 on a Thursday, all of those sets would be better. The first 6 would remain the same because they're done. So the first 6 on the Monday would be the same. But the second 6 exercises we would normally do after chest, already fatigued, are now 3 or 4 days later on a Thursday. So you're fresh going into that workout. So the same 12 sets has now become much more productive because this 6 sets are as productive as that 6 sets because you haven't gone straight through on those 12. You can even split it up even more if you're doing 3 days a week. So you can do chest on a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday. You're going to be very productive, you're going to be very strong. And if you add up the weight that you lifted in that week, you're going to do the same 12 sets, but I 100% guarantee if you add up the working volume for every one of those sets and try it in week 1, doing all 12 sets back to back, and then doing 4, 4 and 4, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you'll definitely hit a lot of volume in the same 12 sets. Another thing that makes this split fantastic is the ability to be able to adapt it. So if we've got someone who's like myself, professional bodybuilder, and I say, right, I need to bring up my chest and I need to bring up my biceps, okay? So what I'm going to do then is I've got one posterior movement that needs to be brought up, which would be the biceps, and one anterior movement that needs to be built up, which would be the chest. So what I could do then, let's say for example, I was training 6 days a week, I would make sure that I did perhaps as many as 8 sets on a Monday for chest, 8 sets on a Wednesday, 8 sets on a Friday. So I'd do 24 working sets over a 7-day week with 1 day rest, probably on a Sunday. So those 24 sets, if you did it again, if you did them all back to back, you're just going to be non-productive by the end of it. But by doing 8, 8 and 8, we're still going to have good productivity within those 8 sets. And you're still going to be able to recover, because what we're going to do is drop the volume everywhere else. So if I've got a weak chest, the likelihood is my shoulders and triceps are reasonably good. So I'm going to do half the volume on my triceps, half the volume on my shoulders, which will allow me to double the volume on my chest. Because we're still doing a lot of pressing, you're still going to be working your triceps, you're still going to be working your chest. So we're still going to get enough effective volume to maintain, perhaps slowly improve those already stronger areas, but we're going to be able to put all of that focus into the area that we need to target, which would be the chest. And it would be the same with the biceps. We just increase the volume of the biceps there, and we'd lower the volume on perhaps the calves, the hamstrings, maybe even on some of the back exercises. Or we'd make sure the back exercises were more focused on the biceps. So we do an underarm row, an underarm pull down. So we're getting more focus on the biceps while still working the back. The way you could play around with this is to do posterior, anterior, say Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, have Friday off, and then Saturday, pick your weakest body part. So it might be a combination, it might be chest and shoulders, it might be bis and tris, it might be quads, it might be hamstrings and back. What we do is you do your normal posterior anterior workouts where you split a roughly even amount of volume. So let's say we were going to do an arm specialization program. We do posterior, anterior, posterior, anterior, rest. And on the Saturday, we just do arms. So you might do 4 sets of biceps on your posterior day, 4 sets of triceps on your anterior day, another 4, that's 8 sets of each through the first half of the week. And then on the Saturday, because you only train arms, you might even do 12 sets. So you might do 6 for biceps, 6 for triceps, 8 for biceps, 8 for triceps. So you'd end up with a combination of 16 working sets of biceps and triceps over that week. You're still hitting everything else twice a week, which I think is important. All the research now is saying volume is more important than intensity, although intensity needs to be there. Like I said, it's not a set unless you're close enough to failure to stimulate some muscle development. But you don't need to go to failure. You don't need to break form and lose form to get any stimulation. You'll do much better staying 1 rep short of failure, both for your central nervous system and your recovery and injury prevention, if you stay 1 or 2 reps short of failure but do more overall volume, putting more stress through the muscle over a workout and more stress through the muscle over a 6, 12, 18-month period, because you're not getting injured. So as you can see, the posterior anterior workout can literally work for anyone, an absolute beginner or a complete professional, because we can adapt it to fit the profile of what you need to get results. So if you're looking for a training program and you've not tried this posterior anterior workout before, contact me and we can look at where you need to improve, where you are currently, and how we can adapt this workout to fit your needs. So you never have to miss a workout. You never have to worry about, am I doing enough for a certain body part? Everything will be tailored to give you the exact results that you want for the plan that you need. It's completely adaptable. You can have the same exercises as someone else, but they'll be doing 5 exercises for quads and you'll be doing 2. And you'll be doing 5 exercises for biceps and they'll be doing 1. It's the same exercises, but it's completely adaptable to what you need to focus on. That's what's important about a training program. Not what everybody else needs to focus on, but what you need to focus on, tailor it to your needs so you can never miss a workout and you can prioritize exactly what it is you need to prioritize. Give me a shout and I'll hook you up.